Come closer, peasant. Welcome back to the channel. Where are we today? We're in Conwy. We are today exploring and visiting Conwy Castle. There's a lot of history here. It was built way back in 1283 and it's a heritage site. So stick along watching this video. We'll give you some funny facts, some history about the place, and we'll show you around and show you what it's like. Anyway, peasant, be gone. So parking, it's quite simple really. Card or cash. £2.50 for an hour, £4 for 2 hours, and £7.50 for 4 hours. So, prices. It's £12.50 for adults. If you want to bring your family, up to 3 children, 2 adults, 40 quid. That's not actually bad value, to be fair. And if you're a member, it's free. Is there some sort of castle membership you can have? Like all the UK castles?
Whatever it is, I want to join it.
Yeah.
But blue light card or young carer, I could be your carer.
Oh my god.
The toilet facilities, just bear in mind, all the walls are downstairs here. Okay. This is through this door. It's the same way back out as well, so you can finish in the shop. These are for you for today.
So why Conwy Castle? Well, in fact, I was going to try and come up with some incredible facts about it, but no, in fact, we were just nearby stopping it. No, I'm joking. One of the reasons I wanted to visit this place, we've driven past it a few times previously when we've done hikes, and the town itself is pretty impressive. So they've got, it's one of the most well-kept, preserved walls in Europe, apparently.
So, if you look above, there is something called murder holes up there. And what they were, according to this, and ChatGPT, they used to put boiling hot oil and throw missiles down at their attackers. Crazy. Carry on.
It's a bit windy.
So we are going to Llewellyn's coronet. So it's a sword or something at the top of this. So it's a piece of artwork representing the spirit of the Welsh people. So it's going to look. Oh my goodness. Massive. So we're at the top of Llewellyn's coronet. And that is the piece of artwork that is representing the Welsh people.
So, interestingly, to get away from the wind, apparently the whole of Conwy is surrounded by these walls, castle walls, so it surrounds the whole town. I thought that's pretty interesting. In fact, it's fascinating to be honest with you.
So we are in the prison tower, but I've just found 2 inmates. Come with me. They're right in there.
Oh. Oh, fuck, Jesus Christ. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was fake.
Real one.
Nah. Oh, I don't get close to it. Oh. I thought you'd be like a statue or something. That's where they, so that this is where they chucked people down. It's quite actually eerie, to be honest with you. God, that actually scared me.
So I'm not sure if this is right, but this looks like a medieval toilet. So what you do You sit here.
Is that stable?
Hope so. You'd read your Daily Mail.
Did they have a Daily Mail?
I don't know.
Some sort of scrolls?
Yeah, they'd read the scrolls. And if you could look down there, it'd probably land on some attackers. So,
Have you made that fact up?
ChatGPT said that.
To be fair, what a beautiful view to have a toilet.
So we found 2 more inmates in the prison. They're up here.
Oh man, I hate
Phil and Ben.
So I thought this is the right time to tell you about this place, considering we're at the prison tower where people died. Apparently, right, I know everyone says it about castles and old places, but apparently this is one of the most haunted places with various sightings. I'll give you the exact sightings of what people see around here. You know what I'm like being a wuss. I wouldn't stand in some of these places on my own. So strategically, you can see that this castle was well placed. You've got the height, you can defend from there, and you own the rivers crossing. So it's pretty tough to defeat the defenders of the castle because of how strategically well built it was.
So behind me, this is known as the King's Tower. So let's go and have a look at the views from the top. Meant to be, according to this, breathtaking.
Oh. Wow.
They weren't wrong. No, I could.
Why is it, no matter what we do in Wales, right, it doesn't matter if it's high, opposite high, if it's eating, whatever, it always involves incline. Everything is incline. I think one of the most interesting facts for me in all of this, right, it was built in 1283 and it was finished, I mean, I'm talking the whole structure, all the walls, everything you see here, in 1287. So just think about that. That was 4-year period, right? I don't think anyone was on project management courses. I'm not sure if health and safety was a thing, but just think about building all of this in that short period of time in the 1200s. Now, when you compare that to modern day, how am I going to be like phrasing this? But if you compare it to the modern day, right? Yeah, HS2. We can't build anything that quick, so I think if you get rid of the bureaucracy and the red tape, it shows you what can be achieved, doesn't it? Am I saying they had it right in the 1200s? Probably not, because they were chucking people off and calling people witches, and it was a bit of a ropey time, so I thought it's a very interesting fact though. 4 years, 1 World Cup time period to build the whole of this. It goes through all the town.
So this is the chapel tower. There's a stained glass in there. It's Edward's ornate chapel. So let's go and have a look, see if we can find it. You've got to be quiet.
You can't tell on this video, I don't think. These stairs are extremely narrow and it's not a one-way system. Wow. On another tower. You can see them all. That's the King's Tower. We're on the Chapel Tower. So just look around this place.
Down there.
This place is massive. Oh my god.
They do have en-suites here as well. Follow me.
Ensuite.
Lovely en-suite in the chapel.
So, where we are standing now was where King Edward had his own private room to view the chapel service. So this was his room, and you know what? I'm not even just saying this as well. It's quite actually amazing that I'm standing in the exact same position where somebody 800 years ago was standing.
So yeah, he spent Christmas 1294 under siege at Conwy. It's likely he sat here by the window watching the chaplain celebrate mass below. Wow, crazy.
That is crazy. Imagine having that resiliency and that mindset to just be casually sat at Christmas watching a chapel service whilst there's a mass amount of people trying to come in and behead you.
Like they're celebrating mass.
No, as in, look, they were securing his borders and as an invasion. So he was sat here on Christmas while under siege.
Yes?
So he just sat here while his people out there.
Chilling, maxing, relaxing, just seeing what's going on.
That is crazy. Wow. Another little cubby hole. So here's a fact, and I hope someone can fact check me, but I did do a bit of Googling. Apparently the toilets, right, they were just holes in the, is that one of them? I don't know. But apparently the toilets were just holes in the ground, right? And the waste would just literally seep into the river. It literally just fell straight to the river. So, you know, a bit earlier I mentioned about how it was great they built it in 4 years. Yeah. They didn't have any electricity or plumbing. So I do get, you know, they didn't do the full thing. So lost a little bit of respect for them 800 years ago now. Pretty easy job, wasn't it?
So we found the stained glass windows. I don't know.
Look how creepy. That's where King Edward would have been. Well, it's where Edward would have been standing, watching from up there.
That's weird.
It's quite weird, isn't it, thinking about it? Yeah. But imagine the pressure you'd be. Joe, imagine just standing here, like right now. You know, you're doing mass. You're doing mass. You're standing there, you're doing your thing, whatever. We're here today, and in the corner of your eye, you keep looking up. And today, in this holy day, and you keep looking up.
And he's up there.
Could you imagine? Imagine you get one word wrong, or you embarrass him accidentally, you say a joke, and he's just stood up there like this.
Yeah, you get beheaded.
That actually is creepy, man. You think about it.
Somebody's watching us.
No, not for me. I would not want to do this job at all. So, interestingly enough, this castle was actually built for King Edward I. This was one of the key strategical points and one of his key areas to take over Wales. So they built all this just so they could conquer the Welsh lands and bring it into the rule of the English. Rather interesting. I tell you what though, these kings way back, they had massive egos, didn't they? They were quite self-centered, weren't they, if you think about it? Especially built rooms for the chapel services while other people didn't even have a toilet, they had to all share. He built his own castle, his own private apartments. Very real-like behaviour. So this castle was actually starred in a film. It was starred in King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, 2017.
No way.
Did you not know
It's
that?
a class film.
I knew that, obviously. Yeah, this is where they filmed it.
So, you know me and Pep love ghosts, as you can tell by our previous video of White Ladies. But just doing a bit of fact checking, it is said to be haunted by two in particular, a monk and and the Grey Lady. So I'm going to try and find them here somewhere, and if we do, we'll let you know.
Why are ghosts always like the White Lady's nun, the Grey Lady? Why is it never sort of like Bob the Peasant, haunting the place. I don't understand why it's always
Jimmy the Chav.
yeah. Why is it? You know what I mean? The jester. Why is the jester not haunting us? Why is it always a nun?
So yeah, I'm just doing just ChatGPT, who's our best friend at the minute. So the Grey Lady is a female spirit dressed in grey. No, Sherlock. And he's said to roam the castle, especially around the royal apartments. Some believe she's the sorrowful ghost of a noble woman who died of heartbreak.
Died of heartbreak.
Oh,
So is that Edward again?
Yeah.
Just getting up to mischief.
Edward Gallin it.
Wow. What's a good castle without a good battle? So one of the most, I'm not going to go through all the battles, but one that sticks out to me is the capture by Owain Glenveagh forces. So this is extremely interesting. Bear in mind the strategical position of this place and the defence mechanisms of the inner walls, the outer walls, and how it's built, right? Owain and his cousins, so not an army, just Owain and his cousins, they chose Good Friday, April the 1st, 1401. They disguised themselves as carpenters and infiltrated the castle. They managed to seize the castle for 2 months. This is like a proper heist-like story. Could you imagine the amount of people who tried to recapture this from the English? And all it took was Owain and his cousins to disguise themselves as carpenters. That is absolutely brilliant. So the Welsh did regain back control of the castle for 2 months. Unfortunately, the English forces negotiated and the castle was returned back to the English. Fair, good effort, Owain. The classic disguise. Excellent.
So, as you've just seen, that suspension bridge there was designed by none other than one of our local boys, Thomas Telford. So he's here, even in Wales, represented. Tell you what, his work is unmatched.
I never did get into that school. The toilets. I know we spoke a lot about toilets on this video, but what is really interesting is the toilets did, I was right in the earlier bit, they did just empty directly into the river, but they also served another purpose. When this castle was under siege, under attack, they used to, I'd have hated to have this job, but defenders with archers would cower down into the toilet, from the toilet, and just pick off people trying to attack. And I just think fitting with this castle and the history of it, right? Yeah, you can also imagine some other ropey activities happened from that toilet. You can imagine attackers being below. There's no guns or anything like that. And, well, just use your imagination and what you reckon some of the defenders of the castle were doing, goading them.
So now we've just stepped foot into the King's chamber. And apparently there's his head. You can still see the outline of. But look how big his gaff was. And a massive fireplace there. You know, living like luxury in here. Not a little cubbyhole like the other peasants.
So as we are in the King's chamber, let's do a few facts about good old King Edward. So firstly, apparently he threw tantrums quite a lot. Apparently there's a famous fact about he was in a council and he was trying to increase taxation, I'm guessing for his world feasts and quests of conquer. And during that taxation meeting, apparently he smashed up the table in anger because things weren't going his way. Following on from that narrative, he had a very, very sensitive ego. Apparently often shouting to people, "I'm in charge," and weirdly, he had a pet lion. Wow. And apparently he used to flex that to people.
Imagine
a pet lion.
Your pet lion.
But it did actually escape. And it's savage. No, seriously, it escaped. And lastly, just a little bit more about him. Apparently his feasts were that big and grand. There was often brawls and people would be fighting with bones and carcasses in the halls. Anyway, that does fit into his bedroom now. Huge windows, Absolutely massive. He's got his viewing platforms as well. And when you look at the castle, this is the biggest room, obviously. But sensitive, egoed Edward. Why are all the kings in history just weird in English history? I think we're going to have to do a bit more of a series of exploring all the kings and queens and just see if any of them were actually alright. So we're in the King's Hall and literally his bedroom's only there. So this is where he would have his grand feasts. Not very hygienic because the toilets are just there and they used to drop down, so I'm not feeling comfortable about that. But honestly, it doesn't feel that big for a hall. The ceiling and the structure, yeah, impressive, but like the actual hall itself. But then again, in the 1200s, what was the average height? Like 5'5"?
Yeah, they're all hobbits.
That's quite. You know what? Thinking about it even more now, could you imagine just this sort of self-righteous, egotistical? I'm gonna try and figure out his height, but like 5'5" king with a lion running around, trying to tax everyone, shouting, "I'm in charge." How was that ever taken seriously?
Lord Farquaad!
How was that ever taken seriously by anyone? Oh God. Pretty interesting fact here. In 700 years, there was only ever 3 monarchs who stayed in the royal apartments: Edward I, Edward II, and Richard II. There's a lot of this storytelling about him spending the most miserable Christmas here on 1294, where he was surrounded by the Welsh army. But he managed to get through it. Of course he did. Good old Edward. Oh,
So, this is a 91-foot well. That's where they used to get the water from. I didn't know what a well was.
yeah, that water looks absolutely horrendous. There's no way. There was no plumbing system, was there?
No.
So,
I think they kind of scrimped and saved, didn't they, in the plumbing system?
well, yeah, he wanted his feasts instead. Okay, I stand corrected. King Edward I of England was known as Longshanks.
What's that mean?
He was around 6'2", which was extremely and unusually tall for the 13th century.
Ah.
The average male was around 5'5", so he earned the name Longshanks because of his long, lanky build.
Oh.
Wow.
Right, so this is the Great Hall. So,
Ah, this is the hall. Ah, that makes sense.
yeah, so that was his private hall. Now we are going into the Great Hall. I think we've already done this bit, haven't we?
Oh, there's the prison tower. So this is his. Ah, this makes sense.
Right,
So
let's just try this out.
the Great Hall.
See if I can put your fat head in this.
That suits you. That does.
Does it?
Yeah. You do actually look like you could be like a
Like a peasant.
13th century peasant. You actually look like that.
I'm about to get spanked or something.
Yeah, this is a lot more grand than his. Yeah, the hall is massive actually. This makes sense.
Look, there's the cellar.
The cellar below the hall. So this is where all the wine and mead would have been kept, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
this is a bit more grand than the other one that we were in, a bit pokey. So this is where the raves would have took place. Here.
Yes.
I don't know what kind of music would have been listening to.
Well, Edward's EDM.
Yeah, Edward's EDM.
You would have had
playlist volume 2.
Yeah.
Put it on Spotify now. But you can imagine the absolute carnage that took place in here. You know, people doing the worm, someone over there doing the robot, Longshanks just sucking off the bone.
How much did this all cost? This structure, the wall, building high walls around the town. Well, it cost £15,000 back in 1283. I've tried to do a bit of research on this and they said it's quite difficult to put that into real money terms. But to put it into perspective, they reckon the average worker was making around £4 a year. I think that was right, yeah, about £4 a year. So estimates say this would have cost anywhere between 60 and 100 million pound in today's money, which does sound a lot, but I don't actually think it is.
You could probably get a semi-detached in London for that now, though. So
Well, the thing is, right, yeah, if you actually want to put real terms of value on here, Jack Grealish was sold to Man City for £100 million.
I want Conwy Castle.
What would you rather have? Conwy Castle, with all the halls, the chapel, or would you rather have Jack Grealish?
Chapel Birmingham.
Yeah. Sorry, we have to do a bit of hate on Jack Grealish as Wolves fans. I had to get it in there somehow.
So I am pretty disappointed in the gift shop because I wanted to find the swords and the helmets and the shields and stuff, and I can't find any of that. It's just like bookmarks and tapestry and pens.
There's nothing about Edward in here as well.
No, there's nothing about Longshanks.
Is that him? Don't know.
But yeah.
I think, yeah, there's nothing about Edward. Not much has changed in 800 years. I'm reading a medieval cookbook here. And I'm guessing they still catered for vegans 800 years ago. That does surprise me. There he is. Owain. One of the greatest heists ever. Pretending to be a carpenter and taking over this £100 million structure. That's probably my most fascinating stat, genuinely. Look at the queue now.
We're not in a rush.
Top tip, get here early. The queue's out the door. We got here at 9:30 when it opened. So,
Wow.
yeah,
And it's
coming out the door.
literally, that's good. That is it. Done. I hope you've enjoyed our take and our facts and, well, partly comedy value on this trip.
What comedy?
What I would say is then, so just for informative purposes for anyone, it's extremely busy now, which is about 11 o'clock on a Sunday. The car park is quite small.
It's tiny.
It's tiny. The walkways inside the castle are tiny. You can wait quite a while when it's this busy. So I would recommend getting here
Get here
early. What do I think of the place overall? I think it's absolutely brilliant. I know I say that all the time, right? Yeah, but I'm a bit fascinated.
Gary Barlow.
No, but listen, I'm personally fascinated with British history and how the United Kingdom formed and all that kind of stuff. And what I like about coming on these trips and doing the YouTube videos for them, visiting these places, I get excited again because in my normal life, I'm not really doing much research on it. So, me personally, I loved it. One top tip, right? And I'm sorry I'm saying this, but I don't feel like you get all the history and facts walking around. I don't feel like you get that in a lot of heritage sites. My recommendation genuinely would be, if you're comfortable with AI, just go on some sort of tool, ChatGPT, whatever it is, and just search top 10 funny facts, top 10 scary facts, top
really
10
helped us out, didn't it?
interesting facts. And just quickly ask, how much did this cost? Who was King Edward? How tall was it? It's very quick and informative. You don't get that information here. So that's what I would say about this place. Would you visit?
I've been about 6 times. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
But for the terms of the price, £12.50 each for an adult. You know, I don't think it's too bad. £40 for a family of 4, I think it was.
I think it's, like I say,
Great for kids.
and it's what you make of it. If
Yeah.
you start doing a bit more research, you can have a laugh with it and just picture, 800 years ago, a 6'2" king with his lion. It's quite funny when you think about it. One thing that definitely has piqued my interest now is a heritage card. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
I feel like we
member
should become a
free.
member and visit these places for free. Anyway, that was quite a high-paced review about this place. You can see I'm a little bit giddy. I've dressed for the occasion as well. I feel very royal.
I mean, yeah, we both got the quarters on.
Yes. Anyway, thank you for watching. If there's any more places you want us to tick off, we will try and give you the best facts, information, and tips about the place. So leave anything in the comments if you can think of anything. Anyway, as true King Edward style now, I shall let the peasant do all the viewer, subscriber nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
Peasant.
You already know about
Peasant be done, I'm going to get a
subscribe,
bacon
comment.
sandwich.
But we always do on this channel, and we always say, we'll catch you at the next one. So, in the spirit of King Edward, we've decided to mark the end of the walk with our own feast and 2 large full English breakfasts.
But the difference with how King Edward would have done this, obviously I'm the king in this relationship, I'm allowing the peasants to eat and be part of the feast today.
That's nice of him, innit? So yeah, we'll tuck into this now. See you later.